Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and of course, all my daydream royalty, my name is Ashton Gene Lewis. This is a little show I like to call the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. This episode, we're solely focused on Week 3 in the NFL season. I'm going to do a little intro stuff here. I've found that it's best if I give myself some room to do the intro and then start the timer. So we're gonna do that real quick. I'm not gonna go too long on this. I will say this: I am vamping right now in this moment, not because something's going horribly wrong, but because I need to access my own stream real quick, bro. Something weird's happening. Interesting. Close. All right. Something weird is happening here. Doesn't look like I'm online right now, which is interesting. Oh wait, it just went live. All right, cool. Sorry for the duplicate audio. I am just trying to get my stream popping off here right now, so I can post it on this Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter at FB_Playbook, you can. I just did a bunch of live tweets and shit like that for Thursday Night Football, mainly because if you don't know, I am a Seahawks fan. Did my stream just die? It did not. Okay, cool. Just checking. We're going through the whole fucking song right now. This is Memories by one of my teammates, Christina Gukas. Shout out to her. She used to make music and now she doesn't anymore because she's a full-time blogger. Look up Christina, spelled normally like Christina, Guckes, if you want to check out her travel vlogs all over Dallas and North Carolina and all the other places she goes to. I think she's going to the West Coast pretty soon. She might be going to Vegas with us for the team stuff that we're doing. If you guys don't know, I play a weird sport called quad ball, which is the legally sensitive name for Quidditch. But that's a story for another day. Hit me up on FB_Playbook. You can follow me on Instagram at TheAshtonForever if you want to see my absolutely mid basketball clips. I will say my boy Alec, obviously this is what friends are for, but my boy Alec saw my clips. I posted because I played basketball. I had food poisoning. Last week was kind of crazy. I had team practice, which is 3 or 4 hours. I forget. I think it was like 3.5 hours or something like that. But before that, I had basketball on Tuesday. I played basketball every Tuesday with my old high school teammates and some random people at this one gym that we go to. And I have games that I could go to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I stopped doing that because I'm trying to do a better job of taking care of my jumper's knee. So I'm focusing more on rehab and dialing back the amount of basketball that I play because basketball is how I hurt my knee. And so I've been focusing on the place where I play basketball that is closest to my house, and it takes and honestly, most of the time it's more competitive. Most of the people who go to the other place I go to on Tuesday actually have played basketball their whole lives. There's a lot of older guys who picked up basketball late in life at the place that I go to in a small town called League City outside of Houston, who I enjoy as human beings very, very much so. But sometimes they don't make good basketball plays. It just happens. Everybody's played pickup basketball before when you have a person who doesn't know what they're doing or a person who does know better and chooses not to do better. But in this case, it's just people that they just came out there to hoop, and I respect it. You know what I mean? But they are the people I play with on Tuesday are a lot younger crowd. So I feel a lot more comfortable playing like full speed, full tempo and stuff like that. But overall, I should probably actually show my face instead of doing the whole starter window thing. The clock has not started, by the way. Of course, I'm going to cheat this part. But this is the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. I was just talking about how I would try to do a better job of taking care of my jumper's knee by resting it and doing my rehab independently and only limiting my workouts to certain stuff. A couple weeks ago, I was able to run and practice and play basketball without using any painkillers. So no Advil. No, sorry, I use Advil liquid gels, but because you're supposed to use non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs for jumper's knee. And I was able to do basically an entire week of fitness stuff that I normally do without having to use painkillers for what happens after and during sometimes when I am playing. So it's a lot better now than what it was a couple months ago, because during the quad ball season, it takes a lot of running, it takes a lot of fast running and stuff like that. And not to say I was fast before, but this is definitely hampering me from being able to run full speed overall in general, and it kind of sucks. But we're figuring it out. I'm slowly improving and getting better, but it's been a year of dealing with this injury, and I've been trying to do all the rehab and all the stuff that goes with it, and a lot of it hasn't worked. I have a cousin who's a orthopedist, and he's just like, you should just get PRP shots, bro. And I'm like, nah, bro. I'll figure it out. Anyway, I was talking about that because I had food poisoning last week, and so I played basketball, and I was fine. And then something I ate like either on Thursday or Friday, I got food poisoning. And then I played at practice, and I dehydrated at practice because of how sick I was. Like legitimately, like my brain was like in a fog, was having a tough time catching my breath. My heart rate was out of control while I was practicing, and that was like halfway through practice. So I did like another 2 hours of practice in that condition. Not the smartest move on the face of the planet. You'd think at 33 you'd be a better athlete in terms of being responsible, but we powered through. We were able to do a bunch of cool stuff and finish practicing, first practice of the season, and it looked like I was out of shape, but honestly, I've been running more than I ever have, even when I weighed 100 pounds less than what I do right now. And yeah, I think I'm dead serious about that too. I used to run sprints every single day, but it would take I would run fartlek sprints, so my backyard is like, I say 40 yards, but in actuality, the distance that I have to pull up, because that's actually what messed my knee up the most. I run full speed sprints in my backyard, and I try and stop, and I slam, essentially not slam my face, but like my hands into my house, and sometimes into the fence on the other side, and that's like the biggest problem. That was like the biggest issue, because jumper's knee stems from like sudden force, constantly moving your patella tendon, irritating it and stuff like that. And then I would play basketball, like, so I was like working out like 6-7 days a week, and that's what really happened. But I could do that now. I would just have to do like non-leg stuff. Like I can still squat, I just can't squat as much as I used to, because of like personal fear of like overworking my patella, although I do squat as part of my rehab, but like at different weights or whatever. But nonetheless, had food poisoning, was kind of messed up the whole weekend. Tried to figure out what it was, because me and my girlfriend eat the exact same thing on the weekends, both for every meal over the weekend and stuff like that, whether I cook it or we go buy food from somewhere or whatever. So it was a tough time trying to figure it out. Anyway, I had food poisoning, and it carried over to the point where I didn't feel comfortable like going to do sports stuff because of the way the bathroom situation was going, straight liquid. So that was happening, and I was just like, yo, man, it's cool. Like, it's cool. I can play basketball next week or whatever, and all this kind of stuff. And finally got back to playing basketball. So I played the last 2 weeks in a row since I started feeling better, and haven't posted. But I will post the clips. I have a friend of mine who tells me that she hates all of my clips of me playing sports, and it kind of discourages me sometimes. But then other times it makes me like focus on making more clips, just because I know it pisses her off. Anyway, shout out, happy birthday, Sarah. We got a lot to talk about. Not a lot of time. We actually have a lot of time to talk about it. We have exactly 1 hour. I'm 9 minutes into this broadcast right now, because I did send out some social media stuff to get people to check it out, because that seemed to work like last week or whatever. Anyway, in about 45 seconds, I'm going to finish breaking down I'm going to talk about the general consensus of what I saw over the course of the weekend. When it comes to football, Thursday Night Football kind of feels like it is an eternity ago, but Thursday Night Football did have some significant stuff that happened for it, and as you know, we break down every single game into the 4 different categories. We go with the snooze fest. Those are the games that were like the worst to watch. We have heartbreakers, which are the games that have some part of it that either breaks my heart personally, or breaks the fan base's heart, or in some cases, as we get closer and closer to the end of the season, some of these games break the team, and you can see it on the field. We have the oh my category, where something weird happened, not necessarily something about the winning or the losing team, but it just depends on the situation. And then, of course, the this is what we're here for category. Those are the games that I believe personally were so good that they make NFL fans. They bring people in to watch NFL games and make NFL fans. So, Let's take it from the top, shall we? I got a bunch of notes, and I'm gonna try not to glaze over on too much because I feel like sometimes I read too much off my paper. Because I do spend, like I said, it's 48 hours of football in 1 hour. So I do write a lot of notes as I'm going through the games, and I rewatch every single game, even the ones I watch on Sunday. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I've been drinking on Sunday and watching the game. I do be watching the game, and I text with my friends back and forth and stuff like that. But I like to go back and rewatch it with less whiskey in my bloodstream. Anyway, let's take it from the top. We got about 10 seconds before we're 11 minutes into the show officially on my timer, and then that means in an hour and 11 minutes, this show will be over. All right, let's take it from the top on the snooze fest. Thursday Night Football, I'm going to be honest with you, Thursday Night Football is pretty boring for me because I spend most of my time getting ready for this show when I'm watching Thursday Night Football. But this one I thought was really important. Overall, one, because the Dolphins are at a key point in their season. They're in a make or break point of the season. They're in week 3. So in the Bills, they don't need these wins. They're just going to keep dominating all these teams. The Bills, based off what we've seen so far this season, the Ravens game, the Jets game, and now the Dolphins game, they are going to be a team that classifies themselves in the high-powered offense. 31 points. I think they scored 30-plus in every – they scored 30 last week. They scored 30 or 30-plus in every single game that they've played so far this season, and they have played teams that are seemingly at 3 different tiers of competition in the NFL. This could very well be the Bills' season, guys. And I feel like we say that a lot every single year, but it feels like this could be it. And Josh Allen was piecing them up, but more importantly, it feels like they've started to shift away from trying to be a team that's like, we have a superstar quarterback, we should have him throw the ball all the time. What they really have turned into is, hey man, we should all meander down the field. We score the touchdown to be real nice, but we should take as much time off the clock while we're trying to score these touchdowns. It feels like they're practicing for stuff later on in the playoffs in terms of like controlling the clock while scoring at the same time, which I feel is kind of the hardest flex you could possibly have because there's no other team that looks like the way the Bills are playing. Because for me, when I watched them play the Jets, like I said before, a lot of people didn't understand like what was going on in that Jets game because they didn't get a chance to watch it. I watched every single second of it. I actually watched it twice because it was on. It was one of my noon games here in Houston, and then I watched the condensed version afterwards. They were not trying to blow the Jets out. The Jets just weren't able to stop them. They just kept running plays. They weren't trying to swing for home runs. They weren't trying to press or anything like that. They just slowly graded them down. They're like that hydraulic press, those hydraulic press videos that everybody loved. They're slowly just pushing down. They're applying the same amount of force every single time they step onto the field, and eventually you will give up. And that's what happened. It was a cascade of points that happened, and Justin Fields hasn't been seen on the field since. He is still concussed. Tyrod played this past week, once again adding to his legacy of him being a guy that way too many people disrespect in terms of skill. Whatever. The Dolphins came out here. They showed some sort of form of life in this one. There was a lot of drives where, understandably so, the fans were booing. We're seeing a lot of boos early on in this season. So I just watched Thursday Night Football, and the fans in Arizona were booing the Cardinals. And my first thought in my head was, you're a Cardinals fan. What is your level of expectation for like any season, you know? But yeah, whatever. The Dolphins go out here. They kind of show signs of life because I feel like being able to put up 21 points on the Bills is a little bit more valuable than putting up 21 against the New England Patriots. That's just me though. The Seattle Seahawks are playing the New Orleans Saints. They played the New Orleans Saints and they beat the brakes off of them. So this game was over at halftime. I can look up the exact halftime score for you, but basically what happened was I was like, oh man, the Seahawks are playing and it's not in my zone. It's not in my regular viewing zone, so I had to go do some extra finagling or whatever, and I started watching it online. First quarter, it just snowballed out of control instantaneously for the Saints. And one thing I'll tell you this much right now. The Saints are a team that when they win games, they cannot afford mistakes. If they win a game this season, because they very well could be a team that just constantly is losing by one possession. They are 0-3 for a reason. Spencer Rattler is still trying to win his first game of the season as an NFL player, as an NFL starting quarterback. The Seattle Seahawks are clearly one of the best teams in the NFC as of right now. They are The NFC West looks like it's going to come down to a competition between the Seattle Seahawks and the Rams when it's all said and done. So that game is going to be massive. It's going to be key. But I can tell you what the score was at halftime of this game, and that'll pretty much sum it up for you. Hold on a second. Let me get to it. So, but yeah, it was 35-3. Sorry, 35-3. Sorry, it was 38-6. 38-6 was the halftime score of this game. I don't think this game needs much else to be said about it. This was a great showing for not only the Seattle Seahawks in terms of like what they do like not only what they do offensively, but like this was a 3-level victory. There were special teams touchdowns in this one. Torrey Horton went out there, tore it up, got his first breakout game as a Seattle Seahawk, which is going to be massive because getting Torrey Horton plus JSN plus Cooper Kupp plus what else has been emerging. The Seahawks are a team, while everybody's zigging, they are zagging. They run way more heavy personnel, way more 12 personnel up front. They run 2 tight ends, Eric Arroyo and A.J. Barner. Eric Arroyo is a guy who some of you guys are familiar with. If you watch college football, he played for Miami last season. He's really good. A.J. Barner is also very good. And, they've got 2 running backs that they can kind of depend on. I obviously am way more in the Kenneth Walker camp, but Mike McDonald, based off of some of the personnel decisions, I don't know if it's the OC or anything like that. It could also be the offensive coordinator, but it comes off like they want Zach Charbonnet to take the lead role from Kenneth Walker, and then Zach Charbonnet goes out there and he has like 3 plays where he loses like 3 yards. And then Kenneth Walker runs 1 play and he gets the Seahawks into the red zone. It's happened every single week so far this season. He's had 1 rush for like 10 or 20 plus yards. And I get it. Kenneth Walker's got a lot of health issues in terms of like he hasn't had a full season ever in his time in the NFL. But he's RB number 1 for the Seahawks. And he showed it in this one. And instead of wasting more time talking about this absolute blowout of a game, the Seahawks have potentially a number 1 defense in the NFL. Based off what we've seen, not only is it the defensive pressure up front, which is insane at this, I think statistically they are number 1 in defensive pressure because it's 49.6 is their pressure rate. So basically, every other time you snap the ball and it's a pass play, they are getting legitimate pressure on the quarterback, which means that they are affecting the pass at a high level. Moving on. Commanders played the Raiders. This is going to be the first time I reference my notes, so forgive me if it whitewashes my stuff out or whatever. But taking it off from the top, man, if you didn't know the story going into this one, we can talk about it because this is supposed to be a recap episode, right? So off rip, Jaden Daniels has a knee issue that everybody's still pretty skeptical about even today because technically week 4 has started. And Jaden was limited in practice today, so everybody's kind of like trying to figure out whether or not he's going to play or not or anything like that. But if he doesn't play, it could be, things could be a lot worse overall or anything like that. But for the most part, I think they'll be all right. I think they will be all right. I'm trying to find my notes on this game. But Marcus Mariota was a starting quarterback for this one, and the Commanders... this is how I wanted to start this off. The Commanders win 41-24. I would like to say now, just a heads up, some of you should stop taking advice on the fitness level of players from the NFL memes account. Because the opening play of this game was a 69-yard kickoff return from Deebo Samuels. So... fat guys are fast too. We saw that. Shout out Jalen Carter. But I don't think, I think a lot of you guys don't know what an athlete looks like. And so you think Deebo looks fat, even though he looks the same way he's always looked. And he has that hip thing where like his abdominal muscles protrude forward. I forget what it is. What it is called. I will look it up and I will talk about it. He has that thing where like his abdominal wall, like it's not his wall. It's like his hips are like his abs are stronger than his back or something like that, and so he kind of like his back arches or whatever, and his abs are forward, which is kind of what happens with athletes. But 69-yard kickoff is the first play of this game. Christian Rodriguez, a name that we hadn't heard in a while, Last season, he kind of finished the season pretty strong, and then he got hurt, came back, and didn't get a ton of carries. He was a healthy scratch last week, and he was the number 1 running back for the Commanders this week. So he had a lot of promise a couple of years ago, and it feels like people really just like stopped talking about him overall. The Commanders were pretty smooth on their opening drive, and the defense got a stop on the first drive versus the Raiders. Marcus is in the middle of a sick run on the second drive for the Commanders, and then somebody just pops the ball, and it's a fumble. So they went up 7-0 to instantaneously giving the Raiders the ball back. But don't you worry, the Raiders offense did nothing with that. The Commanders really start focusing on making the ball move behind the line of scrimmage. So there's a couple of teams that have been emphasizing this a lot more as the season has gone on. They have a lot of younger quarterbacks, I'll say that much. A lot of quarterbacks that they don't feel comfortable having throw the ball down the field, or they need to find a way to get one of their best receivers involved with it. They're running end arounds, they're running reverses sometimes, but for the most part, it's essentially they're using motion to deceive as if a wide receiver route is being run, and then snapping the ball and then getting a toss to a wide receiver off the edge, and the receiver is catching it in stride and taking off the field. We saw that if you watch Thursday Night Football, JSN had a couple, that was JSN's first touch of the ball. Jackson Smith and Jigba's touch of the ball. And in this game, Debo had the first touch of this one. We saw last week Puka Nacua got a touchdown off one of these plays, but now it's become, that used to be kind of like a trick play back in the day, and now it's become like the norm for these playbooks because these offense coordinators and teams in general have an understanding that these wide receivers, they get the ball in their hand, they're making something happen, especially against zone defense where guys have the responsibility of staying on one half of the field instead of one person being responsible for someone. It's all this question of who's supposed to be responsible for picking that guy up, and they're asking these questions while they're colliding and speeding towards the line of scrimmage, and then before they figure it out who's supposed to tackle who, there's 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 yards down the field. They did a couple of those. It helps out a lot too in terms of deviating the pressure because D linemen can't rush up the field instantaneously if they're trying to figure out where the ball is at, right? Because if they rush towards the quarterback on a wide receiver end around, they're running 4 people away from the ball, which is, of course, horrible in terms of trying to figure out who to tackle. But yeah, they did that. And it wears down the Raiders' pass rush, which obviously has Max Crosby. He does appear later on in this game. I think he gets 1 sack, but it's towards the end of it. Jeremy McNichols burns the Raiders' offense for a huge run down the left-hand sideline, and then a lot of these plays like Jeremy McNichols, the Christian Rodriguez carries that were really clutch, the Deebo Samuels carries that were really clutch. Terry McLaurin gets wide open at one point and Marcus Mariota hits him in stride. The offensive players who were not quarterbacks did a great job of making Marcus Mariota's day easy out here, and then combine that with the fact that the Commanders' defense probably had their best performance of the entire season in this matchup. They got a ton of sacks. My boy Bobby Wagner, shout out B-Wags, he got 2 sacks. First time in his career, I believe, off the top of my head. And then also the first time in a long time that a Commanders linebacker has gotten 2 sacks in a single game. Also, proof of life, Von Miller is alive. He got a sack in this game. But yeah, the Commanders kept getting huge plays from players who were not Marcus Mariota. They got a rookie wide receiver who actually played a bunch of snaps in this game, but he's also the punt returner, Jeremy Lane. He got a punt return touchdown in this game. That's way less pressure overall. But yeah, special teams was a huge part of this weekend overall, but it played a huge role for the backup quarterbacks that had to start. This is one of the many issues that the Raiders had in this game. One of the other ones was the pass protection was just terrible. Trey Tucker, who had a career day, his best day ever in the NFL. He's 5'8" and he runs a 4.3 or something like that. But yeah, he has had 4 touchdowns in the last in 3 games, which is he's the first Raiders wide receiver to ever score 4 touchdowns in 3 games, which is kind of crazy in the history of the Raiders to be the first guy to have a touchdown plus 1 per game. By the way, he had 3 touchdowns in this game, so he had 100 plus. He had 127 reception yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. Two of those touchdowns he scored. They utilized an understanding of the Commanders' defense. So the Commanders run half man, half zone, where one half of the field is in man, one half of the field is in zone. Trey Tucker started on the zone half of the field and ran into the man half, but all the people who were in the man half of the zone play had already picked up other people, and so he was wide open for 2 of his touchdowns. So I'm sure the Commanders going to figure something else out about that, but we also have to remember this is the Washington Commanders, who their biggest issue last season was a little bit of their defense. But yeah, just a little bit of football talk right there. But yeah, overall, the Commanders dominated this one without putting pretty much any pressure on Marcus Mariota to go out there and be a hero, which is usually the sign of a really well-drafted team. Crazy to see. Shout out Dan Quinn, who, by the way, he got his face busted open, and I think almost every Commanders player put it in their photo collage on Instagram after it was over because it just got him turned up. Dan Quinn is a defensive guy, so a lot of defensive players are going to rally around that kind of guy, and offensive players too. But anyway, moving on. This was probably one of the sadder games. It wasn't a heartbreaker because this is great for Bryce Young. He completed like 16 passes in this game, and his team put up 30 points. This is also not one of those games where like this is a backbreaker for Michael Penix. I think it's okay because me and you and every other football fan on the planet, we got to mentally drift away from this stuff where we're letting people abuse our concept of what a good quarterback looks like, right? Like a good quarterback is not going to be a guy who instantaneously shows up and dominates. Like you look at the Seattle Seahawks, they have Sam Darnold, a guy who's played for like 7 different teams or something like that, and it's just one of those situations where you got to like change your mentality. Right now, Daniel Jones is having his resurgence year. We're 3 games into the season, but like those 3 games are the best games that Daniel Jones has literally ever played as an NFL quarterback. But this is one of those points. At some point during this game, I had to start out talking about this just because I love talking about fights in stadiums sometimes. At some point during this game, an older gentleman with a person who looked like he was his son. He had like a Tyron McMillan jersey on. He was a skinnier guy. He's being arrested. Don't know why. Being arrested by like real sheriffs, not like security for the stadium. Like real cops have come to arrest him, and I don't know if this is like some stupid teenager, or maybe this is like a college-age guy who's drunk at the game who looks like this guy's son just because he's smaller and he's next to him. They're trying to arrest this guy, and he won't stand up from his seat, and he's a bigger dude. The younger gentleman tries to pull the sheriff off of the guy who they're trying to arrest. He's like literally like he grabs a cop from behind and tries to pull him away while he's arresting someone. And look, let's be real. That happens outside that football stadium. That kid is a hashtag. What happens in this one is they throw him into another row of seats, and it's pretty funny. Anyway, that must be nice to be white. Anyway, the Falcons actually looked good on their opening drive of this one. It does fizzle out, and their kicker misses a field goal, which is ironic because they've cut Younghoe Koo. If you don't know, they cut Younghoe. R.I.P. Younghoe. Younghoe Koo, don't worry, he's playing for the Giants now. He got picked up like instantaneously, and now the Falcons are actually in the same position they were before because now they have a kicker who they don't trust still. So they got rid of Younghoe Koo, and then they tried to do this thing where they're like, he's just going to stay at home and not travel with the team, and then that happened. He missed a field goal. I think this is like the second field goal he's missed in the last 2 games. Anyway, the Panthers respond on their opening drive. They show some amazing pass protection. Bryce Young dicing them up, passing it around like he knows what he's doing. He looks a lot like the Bryce Young at the end of that Cardinals game that we were talking about last time. Anyway, Chuba Hubbard, they tear it up. They go out there and do their thing. They score a touchdown on their opening drive. Bryce Young actually runs it in and dives into the end zone for that one. It was pretty cool. The Falcons start their second drive. They get into a 3rd and 1. They take a timeout. And coming out of the timeout, they take a delay of game penalty. And I think that tells you all you need to know about the situation that's going on. They're thrown off. Can they rally and get back together? No, they don't. The final score of this game is 30-0. They snap the ball. It's now 3rd and 6. And then Michael Penix gets hit as he throws the ball. He gets hit as he throws the ball. It now becomes 4th down and 6. They get ready to punt. And then the Falcons recover the muffed punt from Trevor Etienne. I have to be very specific. Trevor Etienne is the one who muffed this punt. The Falcons go nowhere on that drive. So they get 2 drives in a row, and they kick a 55-yard field goal. And you guessed it, they missed that one too. So as you can tell, there's 0 points next to the Falcons' name for a reason. The big thing that I took away from this is Michael Penix was actually making a lot of the right reads. He was actually making a lot of really good throws. The issue was who he was throwing to. And I'm not talking about Drake London. I'm not talking about Kyle Pitts, although I really wished he would have thrown the ball to Kyle Pitts a little bit more because the person he was throwing to is clearly compromised. Darnell Mooney kept getting wide open on multiple occasions. If you don't know, Darnell Mooney is the number 2 wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, and he missed the entirety of training camp because he had to have shoulder surgery, and he clearly is still not recovered from it. At one point in this game, I have a bunch of things where I detailed it out. At one point during this game, he is wide open. They throw the ball to him, and this is towards the end of the half. It's ticking down. There's 10 seconds left in the game. He catches the ball, and instead of turning up field and trying to get away from tacklers, he just goes down. And he's clearly concerned about getting hit in his shoulder. And he's still out there. Anyway, Darnell Mooney drops two first down throws. They were both catches that would have been for over 15 yards. The Falcons, on their final drive of the first half, on 3rd down, used a timeout to avoid a delay of game. Once again, not the focus, right? They started shotgun with trips left on this one. Is actually really crazy. But they start with a triangle on the left-hand side, but the back end of the triangle, Ray McCloud, who wears the jersey number of a running back, number 34, he's actually backed up, and he's level with Michael Penix in shotgun formation. Then they motion over Bijan Robinson, and so it makes 4 people on one half of the play, and then they run 4 different routes. And it makes quads. They get people open, and I just thought it was a really cool formation. They did not complete that pass. Just want to say, cool formation. They should definitely go back to it. I feel like that really fucks up the defense when you go from a regular trip shotgun formation to motioning over to quads about taking the running back out of the right half side of the play. So there's 1 wide receiver on one side and there's 4 on the other, and it really throws off a lot of teams. Just thought it was a cool formation. Halftime of this game is 10-0. The Falcons offense at this point had multiple really weird fuck-ups, and most of them were around Darnell Mooney being targeted. The Panthers basically had 1 good drive, and the Falcons had a series of fuck-ups that gave the Panthers this game. 30-0, it's hard to believe that the team with 0 points on the board gave the other team the game. But if you go back and you watch this, that is basically what happened. They almost doubled the number of possessions that the Panthers have. The Panthers, on their last punt of the first half, was only for 23 yards. So the Panthers had the Falcons' last punt of the first half went 23 yards. And essentially, the Panthers started in field goal range. They started at the 50-yard line. They got a couple of yards, and they were able to get a field goal out of that. That's how they ended up with 10-0. The Falcons' defense locked them up, and the Panthers still scored 3 points on that drive. The last play of this half, and this is the thing I was talking about before, I just have it on my notes, it would have been a completion for 21 yards, which is huge. If it was not 7 seconds left on the clock and the Falcons didn't have a timeout because they used 2 of them to avoid a delay of game earlier in this half. But yeah, I'm not saying Darnell Mooney fucked this game up because it's impossible for 1 wide receiver to throw this entire game away. But there was just a lot of lack of organization overall. The first Falcons drive of the second half, I'm sure some of you have seen this highlight. The defense smokes. The defense smokes the Panthers offense. Don't worry. Michael Penix waits to the last. Actually, it's not even the last possible second. A swing route is run by Bijan Robinson, and Bijan is 3 yards away from running out of bounds. He is standing still, waiting to see if Michael Penix is going to throw him the ball. You know who is also standing there waiting to see if Michael Penix is going to throw the ball? Shao Smith-Wade, who is the 2004 Senior Bowl MVP. He's the random defensive player that we're going to talk about today in terms of hey, this random player that you never hear about made some kind of huge play. He got a pick 6 off of a extremely late and very slow because it was like a big looping pass to Bijan Robinson. He just didn't see the DB waiting there. It was one of the safeties for the Panthers. Shao Smith-Wade, he went to Simeon High School. If you're from the Chicago area or from Illinois, if you don't know, Simeon is like a legendary basketball high school. Like multiple WNBA players have gone there. Derrick Rose went to Simeon very famously. And if I'm not mistaken, Len Bias went there before Len Bias went to high school there before he passed away. So, ironically, Shao Smith-Wade went to Washington State, which is the rival school for Michael Penix at the last school that he played at, which was Washington. So, I thought that was pretty funny. They actually never played each other, but they were on both teams at the same time. They just never played each other because Smith-Wade was hurt. The third drive for the Falcons, ends the second half with an interception. This time it's from Michael Jackson. Not that one. The other one, Michael Jackson, if you're a Seahawks fan, you know exactly who he is because 2 years ago he was cut on cut day and then re-signed immediately, and he was the starting corner for the Seattle Seahawks week 1 of the season, which is weird. Was so weird. Still never got an explanation for like why that happened. Anyway, this pick turns into the first touchdown that the Panthers score in this game since their first drive of this game. So to tell you just how good the Falcons defense was doing, that's how good they were doing. The Panthers scored on their opening drive, and they did not score again until like the back half of the third quarter. So the Falcons handed them this fucking game on offense. Anyway, Kirk Cousins ends up coming in at the 10-minute mark of the fourth quarter. It really felt like it was more to protect Michael Penix from going out there and making more mistakes. Maybe he was a little rattled. Maybe he was talking like he was kind of freaked out or whatever. But it was basically like, this game is over. We're down 30-0. But yeah, the run game for the Panthers dominated this and controlled the clock for them most of the day and made sure that they got yards so that they didn't have to pass the ball using Bryce Young as much, which is nice to be a young quarterback and have complimentary football, like free touchdowns, right? And that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what happened in that one. Other really boring game in the snooze fest category. This was kind of like, oh, the little pat on the head type of deal. So it is the Titans. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. That's kind of how I felt when I was watching this game. The Indianapolis Colts played the the Colts and the Titans played a football game, and the Colts showed up, and the Titans kind of did sometimes. The third play of this game was a pick six from, you guessed it, not Daniel Jones. From your guy Cam Ward. Hey, he's a rookie quarterback. He got to get it out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even blame him. He's a rookie quarterback. He's got to get it out. It was 100% Cam Ward's fault. Very similar to the pick six that Michael Penix threw. It was a swing route to a running back that was looped really high, really slow, and also really late in the process of the swing route because the running back was standing completely still as he waited for the ball to get there. And then Kenny Moore, it was a really good safety, really good DB for the Colts. Just ran down and ran through it. Nobody was able to even touch them. The Colts were kind of clowning in this game. They had multiple intentional cross-body empty bootleg throws. Like Daniel Jones bootlegged to the left and threw the ball to the right multiple times in this game on purpose and completed it. So just to tell you where the Colts were feeling, that's the kind of shit you do when you're in the zone, right? But yeah, so after the pick six and a drive with back-to-back sacks, the Titans kind of get it together. The pass protection kind of picks up, but it was really sketchy the entirety of this game. The Colts get pressure with 4, which is terrible when you're a rookie quarterback because that means that everybody else is dropping into coverage. Cam was bailing out of the pocket pretty early, and then the O-line did probably the best thing you could possibly do. They stopped trying to block people after they started feeling that Cam had bailed out of the pocket because if he was able to go out there and make a play, they didn't want it wiped away with holding penalties. Now, it was wiped away with the other 50 billion penalties that the Titans get every single game, which is usually like illegal shift. Like the Titans... This is the Titans. This is the illegal shift 5-yard penalty. That's them. They are in lockstep. I think they got like 8 of those in 2 games. But yeah, the Colts were able to get pressure with 4. That was a huge problem, obviously, for Cam Ward. At one point in this game, the Titans get 3 passes for 3 consecutive first downs. I felt like maybe they were going to figure it out. It's a big feat, a big accomplishment, no matter what, because this is a young quarterback on a team that's still trying to really get more talent on it. Anyway, at halftime of this game, it is 20-6. And without the pick six from Cam Ward on the opening drive, which happens. You know, it's mistakes. Things happen. The score is 13-6. A much more manageable situation than being down by 2 possessions, right? But yeah, the Titans defense showed up again, in my opinion. They gave up 41 points, but they did everything in their power to kind of make this kind of give the Titans offense a chance. They just couldn't figure it out. And that's saying a lot because they started off in the hole, right? They started off down a touchdown immediately, and it felt like they still went out there and they did their thing in terms of like being able to get stops without having to go out there and sack Daniel Jones. They did get pressure on him, but it wasn't every single time that they were able to get stops. And I think that's more impressive than anything, because it feels like the Titans defense plays independent of how tough it is for the offense right now. But overall, the Colts defense smothers the Titans. They forced them to settle for like multiple really stupidly long field goals. There's 3 field goals in particular. There's a 57-yard field goal that they tried to kick, a 42-yard one, which is like relatively normal. They hit that one. And then they tried a 64-yard field goal and then a 62-yard field goal as well. That one was partially blocked, so it was not good. The Titans finally get a good drive late in the third quarter, and it's an extremely rare occurrence. They don't get any penalties on this drive. I checked because I didn't believe it. And then something amazing happened. They did it again. Back-to-back scoring drives for the Tennessee Titans. The Colts basically ran away with this game, though. Jonathan Taylor was like damn near unstoppable for most of this game. But yeah, he's back to doing his thing, mainly because he has a passing offense. That means that the defense has to like respect the ability to throw the ball down the field, which creates more openings for one of the best running backs in the NFL. The pressure for teams to succeed has ruined many careers. And I hope that this game, because it feels like Cam Ward could very easily be walking down the same path that Daniel Jones is, where like he's on a team that doesn't invest in talent, and then eventually he gets run out of town, and it's not even his fault, and he goes to another team and he succeeds because he got a chance to get the experience. Whatever. Moving on to Heartbreakers. That took a long time. How much time do we have left? Not a lot. Not a lot. We do not have a lot of time. It's okay because I'm going to power through this. We're going to power through this together, most importantly. Those were all the bad games. Imagine what I have to say about the good ones. So, but yeah, it definitely just reset my page for like no reason. The heartbreaker games off the top, Kansas City Chiefs, the New York Giants. This game was like never in question. At no point did I think the Giants were actually competitive. And then they were not competitive at all in this one. It was really sad to see how, they got into the red zone at one point, and Russ throws the ball 10 yards over the head of any possible receiver twice. So one time on third down and another time on fourth. And then after this game is over, turns out you need more than 4 really good defensive linemen to have a good defense. And you also probably need Wink Martindale instead of pissing him off to go out there and be competitive. Russell Wilson has been removed as the starter for the New York Giants, and that probably is the last time we're ever going to see Russ play football. So that is why this is in the heartbreaker category. We'll say this was not a complete game by the Kansas City Chiefs. Have to wonder, can they get better? They're supposed to be getting Xavier Worthy back potentially this week. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's why this is in the heartbreaker category. I did not want to talk about this game. It was very much going to be in the snooze fest thing until the recent developments of Russ has been removed as a starter, coming off of the game where he played so well versus the Cowboys. And I think that's the other group of people that I should feel really sad for in this situation. I feel sad for Russ. For being a guy who we all saw kind of wither away. Not necessarily like physically, but like wither away in terms of like a guy that used to be extremely talented, played on a really good team, and has been on a slow decline for the last like 3 years. Really sad. The other group of people that I would feel sad for if I gave a fuck about them is the Dallas Cowboys. They suck ass, probably. They got beat down by Russell Wilson. There's no way around it. They may have won that game, but we all saw what happened. Anyway, moving on. Minnesota Vikings, Cincinnati Bengals. Now, guys, I know what you're thinking. 48-10. How is this a heartbreaker, Ashton? So first of all, the only reason this falls into the heartbreaker category is because this is the worst performance that the Bengals defense is going to put out on tape, even though none of this is their fault. So I would go through everything that happened in this game, but I think it's easier for me to just say, so if you think about Minnesota, Cincinnati, you think the name Isaiah Rodgers. Isaiah Rodgers had 2 touchdowns in this game. He actually had more return yards because he had a scoop and score and a pick 6. He had more return yards than Jake Browning had passing yards. He had more return yards than every offensive player, that includes the running backs, had in total in this game. That's it. Every Bengals player was outgained by the Minnesota Vikings safety Isaiah Rodgers. I think that's all that needs to be said. This was pretty sad. It was pretty awesome for the Vikings overall. This is 2 backup quarterbacks facing off against each other. Once again, complimentary football goes a long way, especially when you got your backup in. They got Jake Browning, who is an unproven backup. Let's be honest, unproven backup, and then they have Carson Wentz, a guy who is a Super Bowl champion. On the other hand, he had a couple of good throws out here. He had some moments where he tried to extend some plays, and I'll say this much: out of all the backups who played this week, he was not the worst. I think Marcus played the worst out of all the backups, I'm not going to lie. And he won his game, so by a lot. But yeah, remember Isaiah Rodgers. You probably haven't heard his name in a while because last year he was on the Eagles. He's actually a Super Bowl champion now because he was on the active roster. But before that, if you recall, Isaiah got busted for gambling. He placed like over 100-something bets on some app using his friend's name as like... using his friend's name on a betting app, which makes me wonder what type of technology the NFL has to be able to find out, like, if your friends are using their names on profiles. Anyway, that shit happened. He got suspended for a whole year because that's how egregious the betting was. He bet on the Colts when he was on the Colts playing, which is just about the dumbest thing you can possibly do. Because if Isaiah Rodgers goes on to have a Hall of Fame career, they're going to bring that up, and they should. But yeah, this game was dominated by a singular player. But overall, the Bengals couldn't run. Don't really know why we're still... Look, man, if somebody can understand the whole Chris Brown thing and why everybody hypes him up so much, please hit me up. Educate me. I don't see it, but I understand that they ain't got too many other options. So eventually maybe Chris Brown will figure it out, especially once they have like a pass offense again, and he'll be able to piece stuff together. But... Jake Browning struggled mightily throughout the course of this game, as he should, because the Minnesota Vikings are a top 5 defense in the entirety of the NFL. And then the offense went out there and they didn't make any mistakes. This was the best game that Jordan Mason has ever had in the NFL. And it showed. This guy, he was killing them. If it wasn't Isaiah Rodgers, it was Jordan Mason. And I think he had like 2 rushing touchdowns and 150-something yards. Best day he's ever had. And I was gonna read off all the crazy shit that happened in the course of this game, but I think I'll say it. I think I'll say it like this: this game basically unraveled completely before halftime. Isaiah Rodgers had broken the Bengals back with a scoop and score off of a screen play. By the way, somebody popped the ball out and he scooped it up and ran it back for another touchdown. Then one drive later, he forced a fumble. He forced another fumble. The next drive, the Vikings recovered that, and if you lost track, the score currently at this point is 31-3. They have 33 seconds left, and you're asking yourself, why did I say specifically 33 seconds? It's because the Vikings forced another fumble, and they got a field goal off of it for 34-3 at halftime. And at that point, you're either, if you're a Vikings fan, having a great time and being real bored because your team is beating the hell out of them, or if you're a Bengals fan, you're probably on your 5th or 4th, 6th, 7th keg stand, having a great time in the parking lot. That's pretty much it. That's all you got. Nothing in between that. Jordan Mason had 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's really cool. Kyle Shanahan knows how to pick him. Remember, Jordan used to be a 49ers running back. So, and it'd be easy to blame Jake in this one for everything that happened because of all the turnovers, but the fact of the matter is the Bengals pass catchers fumbled the ball 5 times, and Jake had nothing to do with that. So, yeah, the Bengals scored a touchdown in the 4th quarter. Does that make you feel better? Doesn't. Who cares? Other heartbreaker games in this one. This is another deceptive score. The Pittsburgh Steelers win 21-14. So I felt like this was two bad teams playing each other, but only time will tell. The first Patriots drive went exactly like this, and it will kind of give you a glimpse into the future. 4-yard rush, Ramondre Stevenson, sack of Drake May, incomplete pass. The penalty gives a penalty for like illegal, I think it was like holding or something like that. Patriots get a first down. And then a fumble by Ramondre Stevenson. If you remember, last week I said Ramondre's been forgiven for his fumble sins. That will not be happening. I doubt Ramondre will be seeing him for the remainder of the game. I'd be surprised, not the game, for the remainder of the season. He is in the ultimate doghouse. He actually fumbled twice in this game, and we're going to talk about what happened. So the Steelers scored despite the Patriots actually playing some like really good defense. They got good penetration up front. Milton Williams, who got the game-winning sack last week versus Miami, actually showed up and had a really clutch sack for the Patriots, and it got wiped away because of a defensive penalty. But the Steelers, and this is one of the things I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, a lot of teams are still trying to figure out how they split up running back responsibilities and running back duties. The worst offender is the Lions, but we'll get to them later. But the Kenneth Gainwell, Jalen Warren split feels pretty good. Like, I feel like they're both really successful when they both go in there, as opposed to what I see with the Seattle Seahawks is where, like, Zach goes in, Zach gets tackled for a loss, and he gets, like, a 15-yard rush, like, 5 plays later, and then Kenneth Walker only gets positive gains, and he gets pulled out of the game. DK Metcalf has back-to-back weekends where he mosses a defensive back in this game, which is pretty cool. That is what the football gods intended. DK Metcalf. The Patriots had 3 of the most heartbreaking drives, and they all happened like in a row. And this will tell you the real point of this game. The Patriots gave this game to the Steelers. So let's take it from the top. This is like, oh man, it's 14-7 at the time. 17 plays, 17, yes. 7 minutes, 17 plays. They cover 92 yards in 17 plays in 7 minutes. 7 minutes to cover 92 yards is pretty quick. And this is the final drive of the first half. And Drake May gets intercepted at the 5-yard line on what would have been a game-tying drive for the Patriots. So that's tough. That sucks. Going to halftime, there's no like retaliation from the Steelers where they get great positioning and something like that, and they go down and they kick a field goal right before halftime. They just get, like, the half is just over. 17 plays, 7 minutes. That takes a lot out of players offensively. The Patriots force a punt on the first defensive rep that they get out there, and then they drive down to the 1-yard line on offense. And like I said, Ramondre Stevenson had 2 fumbles in this game. This is the second one. So the second one is Ramondre Stevenson is diving into the end zone, and about half an inch before he crosses the plane, somebody flies in, and I think it was Cole Holcomb, who's a linebacker. If you're a Steelers fan, you know exactly who that guy is. He is a fan favorite, as Bomani Jones likes to say, and they pop that ball out, and they get that shit back. So literally, 6 yards separating the Patriots from being up 21-14, and instead they've got 2 turnovers and they're down 14-7. And then the drive after that, Antonio Gibson, who's the third string running back behind Travion Henderson, comes in and he fumbles, and then the Steelers get the ball back. So that's 3 drives, 2 fumbles, an interception that would have been game-changing. The first 2 were way more heartbreaking because they were literally like 5 yards away from a touchdown. Antonio Gibson fumbles on the ensuing drive, like I said before, but the Patriots do score on a 15-play, 9-minute drive, which is crazy to say out loud that the Patriots gave up multiple drives where 15 or more plays were run. That is legitimately what happened in this one. Kind of crazy overall for me as a sports fan, especially when you know how difficult it is for especially a young quarterback to go out there and orchestrate an offense for that long without making a mistake. Pretty impressive overall. But that is how this shook out for the Patriots. For the Patriots. They blew this game. They had it. and they just kept giving the ball back to the Steelers. Drake May gets strip sacked by TJ Watt. Even with all of the Patriots, even though the Patriots dominated this game, except for the last 6 inches of the field, essentially, they get 0 points. They get 0 points, and then the defense, on the other hand, didn't give up any points off the drives where the turnovers happened. So they legitimately crazy stuff, right? Like the defense went out there, they had to go out there and play 3 extra possessions, and they didn't give up any points. The final drive of this game was a potential game-winning drive because it was 21-14 is the final score, right? So it was 21-14. This is a potential game-winning drive for Drake May. Huge moment. He goes out there. They go out there and they score the touchdown. Maybe they go for the 2-point conversion because it's Mike Vrabel. Maybe they go into overtime and keep playing because they've been out playing the Steelers the whole time. But what does happen is they get into a 4th and 1 as they're coming across the 50-yard line. And Demario Douglas catches the pass, and initially, if he had just turned around and leaned forward, he would have had the first down. And this is wide receiver culture, not Demario Douglas, but wide receiver culture. He jumps cuts backwards to try and run around the tackle. Too bad there's 2 Patriots running at him at the same time. There's 2 Steelers running at him at the same time. They tackle him a yard short on 4th and 1. Even though if he had dove backwards when he caught the ball initially because he had his back to the first down marker, he would have had it. But, that tells you just the kind of day that they were having. The Steelers defense finished this game with 4 forced fumbles, 5 sacks, an interception, 6 tackles for loss, and they kept the Patriots under 50% from on third down conversions. That's pretty good for some old dudes. Anyway, moving on. Next category, the oh my category. We are running out of time. I'm probably not going to make it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. That is not the right one. Did I put it in here? Yeah, we did. We did put it in here. This one was really funny. So this is the Cleveland Browns versus the Green Bay Packers. 13-10 was the final score. I'm sure you can see that. Is the Browns defense back? 2 years ago, the Browns had one of the best defenses in the NFL. So far this season, they have played really, really well. That Ravens game is deceptive. We already talked about that last week, about how going into the fourth quarter, I think it was like a 10-point game. And then the Ravens scored 17 points in 13 minutes or something. They scored 3 touchdowns in 13 minutes, which is crazy because of the series of events that happened. One of them was a defensive touchdown. They get a sack on the second offensive play of this game on the Packers, who were supposed to have a really good offensive line. They end up with 5 sacks in the first half of this game. They turned a second. This is what happened on all those sacks. They turned a 2nd and 2 into a 3rd and 7. So they took a short yardage situation and they turned it into a long 3rd down. They got just a raw 3rd down sack. They got a 3rd down sack that made 3rd down in the 3rd and 15. And then they got another sack that turned it into 4th and 30 because it was 3rd and 22 or something like that. And then they got another sack that made it 4th and 30, kicking the Packers out of field goal range. The Packers shot themselves in the foot vast majority of this game. They had 4 false start penalties and 3 of them were on 3rd down. Does that sound like it could be a problem for an offense that's trying to figure out how to get yards up the field? You're out there on 3rd down. You've done, I kid you not, pre-sack, pre-penalties, most of the 3rd downs that the Packers were seeing were 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3. Short yardage 3rd down, and then they get a penalty, and they add 5 yards to it. Or they get a sack, and now it's 4th and 8 yards. So they couldn't even go for it if they wanted to. Rookie linebacker out here for the Browns who looks like he might be the real deal. Carson Schlesinger, he torpedoed an entire drive essentially by himself at one point. There was a false start penalty, go figure, that set the Packers up to make it into a passing down, and a tackle by Carson Schlesinger on Josh Jacobs only allowed a 2-yard gain, so it made it 3rd and 5, and then he sacks Jordan Love on the 3rd down, and it kills the drive. He had 2 sacks when it was all said and done. Pretty impressive. Don't really understand how the Packers were getting called for so many mistakes for the first time this entire season, but it fucked them up like multiple times, like I said before. And at halftime of this game, it was slightly drizzling out there, so you have to bear with me a little bit. It was 3-0. Does that sound right? For one of the best, a team that multiple people have said is going to win the Super Bowl, not just me. People think the Packers are really good, and they're playing against the Browns, a team that is starting 18-year vet, 14-year vet, Joe Flacco. I think it's 18. I'm not even joking. I think it is 18 years. 18-year vet Joe Flacco at the starting quarterback position, and it's 3-0. 3-0. Great time. In the first half of this game, 4 plays were completed for 10 yards or more between both teams, not just the Packers or not just the Browns. 2 were on the same drive, and it was the Browns driving to try and get a field goal that they subsequently did not get. So the Packers finally piece it together. They get a touchdown drive using a good chunk of like a read option look up front. They had one play where it was like this crossing action that was pretty dope, where the tight end who turns into the lead blocker for Josh Jacobs if he gets the pitch is moving, but that's not what happened. They ended up finding a bunch of routes over the middle of the field because of how many gaps they were creating for the Browns. The Browns are doing a great job of getting pressure in the first half, not so much in the second. And that was kind of like what turned this game around. The pressure slowed down drastically in the second half of this one, and Jordan Love was able to find stuff over the middle because that's where the blitzers were coming from. They got a touchdown out of that one. Like I said, they slowed down the pressure, but it didn't stop. The third quarter ended on a pretty moronic sack. So, like, time is winding down. The Packers wouldn't get called for a delay of game. They just let the time run out on the game clock, right? Play clock is going down. Game clock is at like 3 seconds. They snap the ball on 3rd and 1 and get sacked for an 11-yard loss. So that killed that drive. Turned 3rd and 1 into 4th and 12. Undoable, right? In the fourth quarter, start of this game, the score is 10-0. The score for the final of this game is right there. You can see where this is going. The Browns' best drive of the day ends on a field goal after their rookies. They got a combination of Fannin, who's the tight end that's really been kind of tearing it up a little bit. Quinshon Judkins, who just got back onto the team after being accused of some crazy stuff. I actually never looked into what Quinshon Judkins was accused of. And I think I said I was going to. I should check that out. Anyway, he's been killing it as a running back. He's been found like not to be even a suspect in the situation. And a couple of PI penalties got them down to, a PI penalty in the end zone, got them down to the 1-yard line, and then a chop block on 3rd down, because they couldn't punch it in from the 1. A chop block on 3rd down made it, because a chop block is a personal foul. So it's 3rd and 16, sorry. They end up kicking a field goal on 4th down. Great, right? Fantastic. Jordan Love makes the biggest mistake of the entirety of this game. He throws an interception around like midfield. They run it back, and I want to say I knew who it was off the top of my head. I knew what linebacker it was. Anyway, linebacker gets it, runs it back into the Packers' red zone, right? 3 points on the board already. The Packers, and then the Browns turn that into a touchdown 2 plays later, so that makes it 10-10. And then the Packers fall victim to the theme of the week, if you will, bad special teams, and they get a game-winning field goal blocked to set up the Browns to win after that, and they score a field goal to win when it's all said and done. 13 points in 9 minutes and 26 seconds in the fourth quarter when you needed most. Insane shit. That was brutal. It was a brutal loss for the Packers because they were the better team coming into it. They got outplayed in a lot of different ways, but it felt like going into the fourth, they were going to squeak out of there with a win. But the wily-ass Cleveland Browns, the shits, went out there and figured out how to get it together. But yeah, between the penalties, the sacks, and the flat-out amazing defense, the Packers' offense was just like non-existent. Josh Jacobs had a good first half of this game. He really struggled in the second half because they started focusing in on him, which probably had a lot to do with the fact that it was raining a bunch. That usually is what does it. But yeah, there's nothing. Like I said, they had 1 or 2 good drives the entirety of this game. Dead serious too. They have a lot of really talented wide receivers that they can't use when it rains. one of the many reasons that shitty teams should have open air stadiums, I guess. Let's go to the This Is What We're Here For category. This is the final part of the show. Let's see how much time we got on the clock. I have 7 minutes to get through all 5 of these games. Wait, did I get to the Texans? I think I did get to the Texans. So if you guys don't know, I'm a Texans fan. And I'll say it from the top. I'll say it off rip, bro. The Texans got dismantled. Even though the final score in the Texans game was 17-10, do not be fooled by that. They had 2 turnovers. The reason that game was even relatively close is because of how talented their defense is, and they've shown that like 1,000,000,001 times that their defense is going to be very good. Even though they just cut a safety that won a Super Bowl just a year ago because of, I guess, how annoying he was, essentially, which is not surprising. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has made an entire career off being the most annoying guy on the field, who's also extremely talented. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back with the Eagles, though. No lie. But yeah, moving on. The Jaguars went out there and they looked terrible, but they didn't look as bad as the Texans did. The Jaguars get a 3rd consecutive game where they forced 3 turnovers. So they have 9 forced turnovers in 3 games. They have never done that in the history of their team, and it is insane that it has happened. It is insane that it did happen. It has happened because that is pretty much the only way they are winning these games. They look terrible on offense, except for when Travis Etienne has the ball. They struggle to get consistent offense. A lot of people are wondering what's up with Brian Thomas Jr. He has decided that catching is no longer within his realm of interest, especially if there's defenders around, which is always a problem if you're playing wide receiver in the NFL. Travis Hunter is still Travis Hunter is still playing good defense, I think, in my opinion. Offensively, there's some times where he's out there and he explodes forward. But for the most part, they're still trying to figure out how to get this offense to click. And while in the meantime, the defense is doing their damn thing. Foye Oluokun, one of the best linebackers in the league. I know a lot of people don't like to talk about him for whatever reason. He's an Ivy League dude who is he literally went to Harvard. He has a whole like profile written on him. I think it's like Foye Oluokun, like Tactical Mastermind or something like that, about like how he plays chess and he relates football to chess. One is more violent than the other. I'll let you decide which one it is. Anyway, Jaguars, despite what the score says, they dominated this game. The Texans looked completely out of it the entirety of it, and I think they've scored 2 touchdowns in 3 games. They are 0-3, and they're in the heartbreaker category because 0-3 basically means your entire season is fucked. They went from a potential playoff team, potential division winner, to needing to do something that is statistically unlikely in the history of the NFL that it would be nothing short of a miracle of the football gods that they pulled it off. I'd love to watch, though, because I'll be watching every single Sunday no matter what, because that's what fandom is. Moving on, this is what we're here for category. This game kind of got crazy. Injuries were the theme of the day for this one. Baker Mayfield and the Buckettes. So the Buccaneers have crazy amounts of injuries across the board. Most of their offensive line is not even playing in their normal positions. They're still waiting on Tristan Wirfs to come back. I think he's like on short-term IR or something like that. Don't know if he's coming back next week or this week or whatever, but he's one of the best left tackles in the league, and they need him bad. There's a good chunk of times where Baker kind of gets in some semi-dangerous situations trying to escape pressure, but so far so good. Baker's a tough guy, though. He's proven that many times over. But for the most part in this one, the biggest injury, I would dare say, is for the Jets. They did not have their starting quarterback in Justin Fields. Don't know if that matters a lot for Jets fans at the current moment because of what they've seen out of Justin Fields overall. But Tyrod, as we've all called him. There's people out there calling him Tyrod, and he has cleared it up that his mom calls him that, but he calls himself Tyrod because that is his name. Anyway, the Bucs in this game, final score is 29-27. The important thing to take away from this is the Buccaneers were wearing the white creamsicle jerseys, where the base is white and creamsicle is the accent color. They, in the history of their team, which goes way back, I think it's like the 70s or something like that, had never won in that jersey. This is the first time they've won in the creamsicle white jerseys. Very important that they never wear those again, because if you got a jersey that's got that kind of record, like I play for a quad ball team, and one of our biggest things is we have orange jerseys because our team is called the Texas Copperheads. We have copper colored jerseys that we play terrible in. And so we've decided we're legitimately the jerseys being removed from the rotation. That's the bad juju. Like they've designed another jersey to replace the copper jersey. And the Buccaneers need to put look, I'm gonna be honest. It looks smooth. I'm sure the shirts look smooth along with it. But if you got a 1-50 something record in the jersey, it's gotta go. It's gotta go. And of course, it takes Baker Mayfield to go out there and break the curse with the jersey. It totally makes sense. But at the same time, you can't risk it. You know what I mean? You can't risk important. You know what? This is a good point. They did this in week 3. They did this in week 3 versus the Jets. That's smart. That's smart. Got to break the curse. I like that. The Jets come in with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, and the Bucks have mid-season level of injuries, which I think bodes well for later on in the season, because it means, I mean, I guess those people could all get re-injured, but it means like they're playing this well with the heavy amount of injuries across the board, and then when everybody else is getting hurt towards the middle part of the season and towards the end, they'll actually be getting healthy and getting those guys reacclimated and added back into the lineup. I don't know what that means for Mike Evans. Mike Evans pulls his hamstring like ridiculously hard, like to the point where he's able to hop off the field and he collapses down on the sideline. Hard hamstring pull, that kind of stuff. But the Bucs were struggling passing-wise solely due to the penalties that they were picking up, but the running game was carrying them. If you don't know, the Buccaneers had like this crazy streak of 100 yards of rushing. I think it's like 12 games in a row. They've had 100 yards rushing, and it coincides exactly when Bucky Irving became the starting running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Shout out Rachaad White, who did get a lot of burn in this one. They use him as a wide receiver a little bit more too, and he's still finding a way. He's very much very similar to what the Falcons do, where they have Tyler Algier play true running back, and then they have Bijan split out into the slot position, and they can run or pass the ball really effectively because that's how good both of them are. But yeah, 12 games in a row. They keep the streak alive in this one. At one point, the Bucs are in a 3rd and 29 down the field, and somehow magically a pass interference is called on this one, and then the TV broadcast shows a slow-mo of Mike Evans full arm extension with his hand grabbing Sauce Gardner's jersey, pushing him away, trying to catch a ball, and then Sauce gets called for the pass interference somehow. You know what, Sauce? You did interfere. You interfered with Mike Evans' ability to catch that ball because he was too busy holding the shit out of you for that offensive pass interference. But yeah, they got bailed out so bad on that one. It was ridiculous. Like I hopefully that's a strike against those refs. Because they have like a strike system where like if you get so many strikes you can't do like playoff games or the Super Bowl or whatever. But yeah, full arm extension and calling PI on the defensive player is a new one on me. In the same drive, the Buccaneers were called for 5 holding penalties. Unreal type of shit. But yeah, I'm dead serious too. It's 5 holding penalties. 2 of them were on the same guy. Their right guard was having a tough time. Their right guard was having a tough time doing this thing, and they had 5 holding penalties overall. And the Jets were called for face mask and PI, and so it helped the Buccaneers get inside the red zone. So a 15-yard play drive ends with back-to-back holding penalties, and then a 55-yard field goal. Does that make sense in your head ever? Clown stuff. But yeah, they start off the game with a 55-yard field goal. Don't worry, the 4th drive of this game, they cut through the Jets like butter, made it look easy, and they scored a touchdown and took the lead. The Jets allowed pressure, what really felt like all game. Tyrod spent a lot of time hopping outside the pocket, trying to find opportunities. In the first half of this game, Antoine Winfield gets a sack. H-Town hold it down. He's from the Woodlands. His dad played for Antoine Winfield, played for, I forget what NFL team, but he's like he's a second generation NFL player. But Antoine Winfield is also apparently like top 5 or he's 1 sack away from being like top 10 all time in defensive back sacks, making him like the best blitzing defensive back ever or something like that. But he's also done it in 100 fewer games than all the other people who are on the list, which is kind of crazy to say out loud. But yeah, he's top 10 for DB sacks, defensive back sacks, and he's done it in 110 fewer games. Anyway, back to how the pressure was a problem. The following drive for the Jets ends in a pick 6 from Jamil Dean, and I can't make this up. Apparently, there's like some kind of running joke with Bucs fans and the players, apparently, that Jamel Dean plays really good defense, but he never catches the interception. And when he caught the interception, they actually had Baker Mayfield mic'd up, and he was yelling, "Jamel, you finally caught it! You finally caught it!" And they asked Jamel Dean after the game, what was everybody saying? They were like, people were making fun of me because I never catch the interception, and I finally caught it. And then somebody yelled it, "You did it, Jamel! You did it!" Like, it was pretty funny. It was it was a hilarious bit. You should go check out the clip. I honestly thought it was kind of insane that like a guy could be that good at playing defense where like he gets that close to the ball but he just doesn't catch it. But they say that's why they're defensive backs. Yeah. It was pretty brutal. And then, of course, the mic'd up part made it like 10 times worse. It's 20-6 at halftime in this game, and the Jets' offense is pretty much dead in the water. They struggled to run the ball because the pass offense isn't there. The passing game is like non-existent because Tyrod can't get like half a second in the pocket to actually like, throw the ball for the most part. The Jets didn't score a touchdown until 10 minutes were left in the fourth quarter of this game. And just to give you an idea, that was just a little taste of how it was going for the Jets overall. Very Jets-like, if you will, for them to not be able to score until the 10-minute mark of the fourth quarter. It only took 3 quarters for their offense to finally click, but when it did, it became a massive problem for the Buccaneers. But yeah, a lot of it was because Tyrod spent most of the game getting to the outside, and that means that there's a little extra chemistry that has to go into it because that means that the wide receivers got to adjust their routes and all this kind of stuff like that. The Buccaneers rushers finally got like really tired, and then Levante David did roll his ankle at one point during this game that set up the Jets to be able to score 3 touchdowns. Yeah, they got a passing touchdown on Alan Lazard. They got a blocked field goal that was run back by Will McDonald, one of their draft picks, at the defensive line position. One of many, strangely enough, only one of 2 field goals that were blocked and run back for a touchdown. One of the best defensive plays ever because he actually blocked it and then scooped up his own block and ran it back. By the way, really cool moment in this one. Their head coach is Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn, if you don't know, used to be DC for the Detroit Lions, and then before that, he did a bunch of other stuff, but he used to play in the NFL for the Jets, and he did his defensive scoring touchdown celebration, which is a lot of like hard stomps and hip thrusting kind of deal. You should go check out the video. They actually matched up when Will McDonald ran back his touchdown on the sideline. Aaron Glenn did the same celebration, and they matched it up with what he did like 30 years ago when he was a defensive back in the NFL. It's pretty cool. Anyway, they blocked the field goal. Will McDonald runs it back. One of the best defensive plays I think ever. Too bad Baker Mayfield had 1 minute and 49 seconds left. That's kind of crazy. Kind of crazy when it was all said and done. He covered 30 yards to get in the field goal range, and they end up losing the game, as you can tell. After that crazy explosion of offense that came from like all the different locations, right? Defensive effort throughout the course of this game, because once again, it was only 20-6 at halftime, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers ended up winning 29-27, right? So they held up long enough for the offense to try and figure out what was going on. Nothing about what the Jets did in this game was sustainable, and they still scored 27 points. I think that is indicative of a good amount of like talent on the team, which is important. But when it comes down to expectation for the Jets, I don't know what Jets fans' expectations could be because they are Jets fans. But yeah, none of this is sustainable. Don't know what's going to happen for him next week. Don't know what's going to happen when Justin Fields comes back because we haven't had enough time to watch Justin Fields play quarterback for the Jets to figure this out. But yeah, while the Buccaneers are still, they're basically a boxer with like a broken hand, and they're still winning all these games. They're undefeated. Can't control who's on your schedule. They've played the Jets and the Texans so far, which are relatively easy opponents based off what we've seen in the course of this season. But that's not for me to determine. Moving on, Eagles, Rams. We are way over on this one. Yes, we are. We're like 9 minutes over right now, but we're gonna try and power through. Anyway. Eagles, Rams in this one. This one was actually a lot of fun to watch. The fourth play of this game is an interception from Zach Bond. Superstar, do-it-all linebacker from just a year ago. If you don't know his story, Zach Bond is bald. Don't know if it's intentional or necessary, for requirements or whatever. Anyway, he's bald. What happens afterwards, he's an undrafted free agent, ends up being a special teamer for the New Orleans Saints, and then in the process of being a special teamer, he becomes a highly valued special teamer, joins up with the Eagles. They find out that he's really good at playing the position that he's been playing his entire life, and he becomes their starting linebacker up front. He's one of the best pass coverage linebackers in the NFL, and he went off last season. He is one of the people you have to be super happy for in terms of like who won the Super Bowl, because he was a New Orleans Saint the year before, and then he won the Super Bowl last year. But yeah, that Zach Bond with an interception who got hit. Matthew Stafford got hit with a little bit of that linebacker blindness where, the linebackers just kind of blur in with the field of vision. Same shit that happens with Jameis Winston all the time, except he got Matthew Stafford, future Hall of Famer. The Eagles ran an insane option read play at one point during this. By the way, the Eagles offense was terrible in the first half of this game. They ran an option replay. Ball gets snapped. Jalen Hurts has the ball. Saquon Barkley runs into the B gap, and then Dallas Goedert motions across from left to right, and it looks like the ball can go to either one of those guys, or Jalen Hurts can keep it. Jalen, as he does, keeps it, and he has Dallas Goedert turn into a lead blocker for him while he's already in motion up the field, which is really cool. They got one of the rare first downs that they had in this game, in the first half of this game, in that one. So I thought that was pretty cool. They're probably going to bring that back because it worked really well against a pretty good defense. The Eagles' ugly football bodied the Rams for the first touchdown of this game. The ugly football comment is from Drew Brees. Apparently he hates the way that he does not care for the way that the Eagles play football, and I have to say this to him. Of course he doesn't. He's a guy who likes to pass the ball. But yeah, the Rams tried to do the thing that they always do, where they can't run the ball in the first half, but it sets up the pass. And then later on in the game, they can run the ball and pass the ball because they established the run in the first half of the game. That's not exactly what happens here. It kind of happens in reverse, and then also the Eagles do it to them. So the Eagles spend a lot of the first half trying to establish the run. They can't pass the ball worth the shit. We'll talk about what happens at halftime for this game. The Rams get a crazy bomb from Devontae Adams, where he very clearly, full arm extension, pushes his defensive back off. Elbow is fully locked, and then he catches a 44-yard touchdown. There is not a flag in sight. If you've ever wondered what penalties are for in the NFL, it is to stop defensive players from completely locking up offensive players, because that is exactly what would happen if PI did not exist. Anyway, the Rams offensive line surprisingly did a good job of wrangling in the Eagles' pressure. I wouldn't say that they were blitzing a ton, even though apparently Vic Fangio's blitzing way more than he usually does at this point during the season. The Rams being able to shift into a run-based team at pretty much any given time is helpful, especially on stuff like the second drive that they had. They were able to really depend on Kyren Williams throughout the course of this game to get the lead, and they got 8 out of the 13 plays on one of their touchdown drives was a run. So they basically ran the ball on one of the best defenses in the NFL down the field, and it was pretty brutal. Also, weird thing out of this game, kickoff stuff, special teams, star of the show. Everybody loves special teams, right? The Rams kicker has some kind of thing that he does. He has a knuckle kick which is like the equivalent of a knuckleball where you throw the ball. He has a knuckle kick that makes the ball get taken by the wind in the air. And so Tank Bigsby basically struggled to even field kickoffs the entirety of this game. He had one that went behind him. He had one where he completely went the wrong direction. And it's because the ball is moving. It has so much movement in the air while also going towards the kick returner. So they don't know where it's going to drop. And Tank Bigsby really struggled with that. And that was like his first touch of the game where it almost went through the back of the end zone. He had to touch back. He touched it and almost went through the back of the end zone. He had to go and run it down. But yeah, that's a real thing. There are other kickers who are doing similar methods as well. I think I know what they're doing, but I'm not going to describe it on this podcast because it would make me sound insane. Halftime score of this game is 19-7. The Rams' run game dominated the first half of this one. This is the worst half of offense the Eagles have had under Nick Sirianni. I think they had something like 33 total yards in the first half of this game. Don't you worry. It doesn't stop in the third quarter. Jalen Hurts gets cracked for a strip sack to start off the third quarter. Kyren Williams scores, and it becomes 26 unanswered points for the Rams. The Rams, they doing the dance. They doing the dance. The Eagles, in this game, do not get their second first down until they are in the third quarter. They got one first down on their first drive where they got a touchdown. They did not get a first down until their second drive of the third quarter. But I will say that first down did trigger a shit ton of points. A.J. Brown went off. 106 yards, touchdown on this one. He abused, and I wanted to say it wasn't Emmanuel Forbes. Emmanuel Forbes did get beat a couple of times by Devontae Smith. But for the most part, I'm trying to remember who it was. It's Rams player number 31. He was the guy assigned to A.J. Brown vast majority of the game, and he was on him like white on rice. It was just that A.J. Brown got them hands. So you put the ball in the general direction, A.J. Brown was able to wrangle it down. There was even one where the DB actually pulled one of his arms as he was catching the ball, and he had to re-catch it as he was going down to the ground. But yeah, it was like they got into the zone. Don't know what happened. Actually, I do know what happened, and I'll tell you this. They started, the pressure got killed. They made a distinct effort to take away Saquon Barkley. They did that. They took away Saquon Barkley. They were one of the many teams that have just been like, if we take away Saquon, I bet you Jalen can't beat us. And then Jalen said, fuck you. Because he took that personally. And he, like I said, started tearing it up. First half Jalen, second half Jalen are two different people. And he was able to run the ball as well, too. He had to run the ball a lot more this season than he did the last couple of seasons. And I don't know if that's like read issues or it's him. Anyway, it didn't look like it was him in the second half because he was able to move the ball pretty easily. The Rams don't score again in this game until 2 minutes in. I'm sorry. Wait. Yeah. They scored a touchdown of Kyren Williams. That was the last time they would score in this game. So that Kyren Williams touchdown, when I said it was 26 points unanswered, that was the last touchdown they would score in this game. Everything else was the Eagles all the way through. The Eagles blocked 2 field goals. One of them they blocked, and they just recovered it, and they get the ball back. It wasn't the other one where they blocked it and they ran it back for a touchdown. Jalen Carter with an insane defensive play, but he did block both of the field goals. He helped block. It was Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis down the middle, and they jumped ridiculously high because they're like freakish level athletes, right? They jumped ridiculously high, and they both had their hands up, and the ball hit both of their hands on the way on its arc. So that was pretty dope. That was pretty cool. They ran it back for a touchdown. Jalen Carter did, and it wasn't a game winner. They were already up in that one. They were already up, but it prevented the Rams from hitting a game-winning field goal on them, which was amazing. Overall, amazing, astounding way to end the game, and it is just prime example of the power. Well, one, defense wins championships, right? Because that special teams defense was insane. But for the most part, man, they stuck around and they fought this one out all the way to the very last second. And for whatever you got to say about the Eagles, you talk about Jalen Hurts all you want. when shit got tough, he toughened up, and he went out there and he tore it up. That's all I'll say. Moving on, second to last game on this one, the Chargers and the Broncos, 23-20. Vast majority of this game. Big thing that came out of this one, the Chargers are still undefeated, and they have beaten 2 AFC West opponents. No, 3. 2. No, they've beaten the entire AFC West at this point. They're 3-0, and they've played the entirety of the AFC West because they beat the Raiders. They beat the Raiders on Monday Night Football. They beat the Chargers now. They beat the Broncos now, and then they beat the Chiefs to open up the season. What a crazy start to the year to start do your entire divisional run to start off the season. Anyway, they are definitively the number 1 team in the AFC West. They've handed a loss to every single one of their divisional opponents, and there is only one, at the time of this game, there was only one loss between these two teams. Remember, the Broncos lost to the Colts in week 2 off that crazy field goal situation. Early on, the Chargers looked pretty much unstoppable. Their coverage on the Broncos short yardage stuff, because the Broncos were so obsessed with running screens, hitting swing routes. They were trying to hit out curls and stuff like that. And the Chargers just went out of their way to shut all that shit down. They had Derwin James at the 10-yard line by the time the ball had been snapped. And they were shutting down all the short yardage stuff to try and force Bo Nix to throw the ball deeper down the field. And it worked in terms of stopping the pass offense for the Broncos. That's essentially what happened. The Chargers got Quentin Johnston. He gets another huge catch in this one. He has I think he's got 40% of his catches this season are 10 yards or more. He had 4 in this game. One of them was for 33, and another one was for 22. So Quentin Johnston, career year already. Second year already. It's like he figured it out or something. It's like he remembered that he's bigger than everybody. Who would have thought? But yeah, everything is going the Chargers' way. And then I want to say this is the third drive or something like that. They get a crazy tip interception. So Justin Herbert gets hit as he's releasing over the middle of the field. It's a low pass. It gets hit by a linebacker and tipped into a safety's hands, and the Broncos, they're just outside of the red zone, their own red zone, and the Broncos take that one, and it doesn't do much in terms of getting them points on the board, because this is the same drive they tried a flea flicker. They tried a flea flicker and they overthrew Marvin Mims Jr. And at the time of the game, at that time, that was the biggest and best play that they had the entirety of this game. Now, the next play, that was a little different because that one was a 52-yard touchdown to Cortland Sutton, which instantaneously became the best play for the game. So the interception turns into a 52-yard touchdown. No big deal. Like I said before, the Chargers did everything in their power to force Bo Nix to try and throw the ball down the field, and he obliged. And that was not great for them. The Broncos abused a lot of the high-low safety look. A lot of teams are now drifting. They start off with two high shell. I'm sure you've heard that word a billion times now. It's just where you look like you have two safeties up top. One of them is dropping down essentially to play in the gap between the safety at the highest level and the linebackers at the second highest level, right? The D-line is the lowest level. The linebackers are 5-6 yards behind that. And then that second safety is dropping down to play the area behind them to make the windows even more difficult for quarterbacks to throw into, and sometimes also going there for run support and blitz. In the case of the Colts, they like to send Nick Cross from that spot as well. But yeah, no need to get all crazy about it. This is the Omarion Hampton emergence game because Najee Harris tears his Achilles and he's out for the season, which is really sad because it felt like he was kind of catching the stride a little bit, and it feels like a lot of his career has been a lot of sputtering, especially when he was with the Steelers. It felt like he was getting a lot of blame for stuff that was not his fault in terms of being able to create the offense. A lot of that has to do with, you can see now, Jaylen Warren struggling behind the same offensive line that they had essentially last season. That is a conversation for another day if I ever get around to actually doing a predictions episode where I tell people, oh, by the way, I did terrible this past week, but somehow my percentile went up. I went 7-8 and 8-7. In prediction. So I went 8-7 in spread, and now I'm in the 90th percentile on ESPN. which is crazy. And then I went 7-8 and straight up, and I'm in the 60th percentile on ESPN, and I'm in second place in both of my pick'em leagues now because everybody else did so much worse than I did. So it does pay for me to watch 48 hours of football over the course of 4 days and then do this podcast. Shout out to everybody else who watches this that makes this fun for me. But like I said, this, we just talked about that huge play, massive play from Bo Nix, but I will tell you now, the main character of this game is Marion Hampton. And maybe a little bit of J.K. Dobbins, but we'll talk about him later. It's 10-7 at halftime of this game with the Chargers in the lead. The Broncos' opening drive, speaking of J.K. Dobbins, another one appears. J.K. Dobbins has his own drive, his own personal offensive drive where he does everything. It's a two-play drive, so it's a 41-yard run and a 6-yard run. And on the 6-yard run, kids, don't forget, always wear white cleats. There's one where he was actually inbounds the entire time, but he ran down the left-hand sideline. He had like 4 or 5 steps where he almost stepped out of bounds, and they wouldn't have been able to tell because he did have white cleats on, so they couldn't tell the difference between like whether he was out of bounds or not, but he was so far away from out of bounds that they actually were able to see the green grass between his cleat and the sideline. Anyway, he ran that in for a touchdown, and it's just cool to see just because JK played for the Chargers last season, and obviously they moved on from him to draft Marion Hampton, and he went out there and he showed them. I mean, he still got the juice. Like, I think the same thing with the Ravens, right? Like, the Ravens didn't believe that J.K. could come back from what happened to him, destroying his knee twice, and then legitimately missing part of his hamstring and still playing NFL football at a high level. And to have a drive like that was amazing because it's just a sign of not only. He's built out of different stuff than I think most regular people are. But that's what makes him J.K. Dobbins. So, yeah, shout out to him. The Broncos forced a fumble on the ensuing kickoff from the Chargers, and it feels like I know everybody hates the M word, but all the momentum starts going towards the Broncos. They get a really dominant opening drive touchdown for the second half, and then they get an extra possession. It feels like everything is going for the Broncos. The second half pressure from the Broncos is smothering the Chargers offense. They finished the game with 5 sacks in total and a ton of pressures to go along with it. Late in the fourth quarter, after chipping away at the Broncos all game, Marion Hampton finally cracks the Broncos with some excellent Marion Hampton and Justin Herbert. They finally crack with some big runs, and Justin Herbert in particular, his movement in the pocket made him extremely difficult to take down, and he drops a dime on Keenan Allen, tying the game up. The Chargers grind out the final drive, which turns out to be the game-winning drive later on. A lot of that is due to Marion Hampton being able to run the ball up the gut, and Dicker the kicker hits the game winner on the Broncos. After all that, the Chargers still find a way against a top-tier, elite-level defense, and an offense that's still trying to find itself. The Broncos are still waiting on some development from Bo Nix. Obviously, he's a fucking rookie quarterback, bro. Like, what do you really expect? The run game is alive for the Chargers, and this is the first game where it really felt like they were a balanced team because the defense held up for the offense. The offense rewarded the defense by figuring out how to make some drives work for them, and they went out there and they played what we consider to be a potential playoff level game, because if there's a wild card coming out of the AFC West, obviously we would think it'd be either the Chargers because we think the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West, right? Or it could be the Broncos if some other stuff continues to go the way that it's going. Yeah. That's pretty much it, man. I got 2 more games on this one. Monday Night Football, which was insane. I'll start off with Monday Night Football because it's way more fun, and then I'll talk about the Cowboys in the back half of this one. Detroit Lions go out there, and it felt like it was a lot of back and forth. And I'll say this much: the Ravens might be look. That defense looks good on paper, but I'm gonna tell you this right now: they know how to make shit fun. The Ravens may be terrible on defense this year. They've already had to sub in a new linebacker. I think they had Trenton Simpson sub out because like last year he struggled too. But they got a new starting linebacker. The biggest question was obviously what's going to happen with the defensive line. Like, how are they going to improve on the defensive line? How are they going to get the pass rush? How are they going to get the run stopping situation shored up in a lot of these situations? What we didn't expect is Derrick Henry to get a case of the fumbles. So Derrick Henry has 3 fumbles in 3 games, if I'm not mistaken, a fumble in every single game, and I don't think he's ever had a streak like that in the history of his time playing football professionally or at the high school level. So we saw on Monday Night Football, he goes over to the sideline, he throws his helmet, and he kind of like sinks into the bench, which is something that is hard to believe about a guy who is seemingly untouchable in a lot of different cases, but people focusing on and realizing that, hey man, some kind of bug, realizing the biggest thing and the best thing for them is that not to try and stop Derrick Henry, but to get the ball away from Derrick, right? And I'll be interested to see how Derrick adjusts to this, because he has to. There's no way that Derrick Henry is going to be done in by look, man, I'll be honest. This happens to me in quad ball all the time. People don't actually try and tackle me in quad ball. They try and get the ball away from me. But Derrick Henry is 100 times better of an athlete than I am. He can figure it out. So, but yeah, that aspect of the Ravens offense being taken away puts a lot more pressure on Lamar, and then Lamar was out there spinning that thing, man. The last couple of games, man, it's been a lot of sit back and let Lamar cook, like sit back and let Lamar try and figure out passing options. It feels like he's intentionally not leaving the pocket. I don't know if that's like a it hurts to get hit kind of shit thing, or he just doesn't feel like he's as fast as he used to be or anything like that. But it feels like Lamar is making a way more intentional effort to be a passer, and it is still working out, which is crazy, because a lot of people, I think, always look at Lamar and they're like, the dual threat aspect of Lamar Jackson is what makes him a really good, borderline great quarterback. And the fact of the matter is, it is his decision making, just like every other quarterback in the NFL, that makes him great, that makes him elite. And I think that's important to point out there, because vast majority of this game, it was the Lions kind of got whatever they wanted, and that's because the Lions are offensively stacked. Like they had a tough look early on in the season, but their offensive line, even with the replacements, they still have, and I still don't understand what's going on in terms of like Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy that starts off the game. David Montgomery is the one that has way more success overall when he touches the ball. Very similar to what happens with the Seattle Seahawks. Have to wonder, do they go back to the original plan of like David Montgomery's like the number one guy and Jahmyr Gibbs is the change-up dude? But Gibbs got loose out there at the wide receiver position, and that helped. As a pass catcher, and that helped a bunch. But for the most part, man, this score is close. It is deceptive. The Lions were running a race, and the Ravens fell and stumbled out of the blocks because they turned the ball over once in this one. But yeah, the defense for the Lions finally looked like a playoff caliber defense. Like last year, they were really hampered by injuries overall. But in this game, I think they had like 5 sacks in total, which is absurd to think about. 5 sacks on Lamar Jackson. Like Lamar Jackson, like the most mobile quarterback probably ever in the history of the game. But 5 sacks on him in a single game, obviously you're going to be able to go out in a turnover and essentially eliminating Derrick Henry as a possible option. Even though Derrick had a touchdown early on in this game, that fumble took something out of the Ravens' like offensive ability, and that showed itself. But yeah, that game overall great to watch. Probably one of the better games that we're going to see all season. If you watched that game, you had a ton of fun. There was a lot of different scores that happened, a lot of great plays from offense, defense, special teams, and from the running and the pass game. It wasn't just a one-dimensional type attack. It was a lot of fun. Going to our last game here, it is the Caleb Williams emergence game. Caleb Williams finally has emerged. Remember, Caleb is working with Ben Johnson's offense for the first time ever. And in theory, based off what we've been reading from other people, this is the first time that Caleb has really been charged with running a real NFL offense. And 3 games into it, look, I'm going to be honest, based off what we've seen from the other Dallas Cowboy games, this is probably just an aberration in that the Dallas Cowboys defense is just not good. But Ron Odunze goes out there, does the thing, Somehow we're finding Luther Burden Jr. the third a ton in terms of offense. He had a touchdown in this one, but we can't find DJ Moore. Don't know what's up with that. Very strange. DJ Moore, the only part of this offense, even on the day where the offense for the Chicago Bears was able to do whatever they wanted. Cole Kmet had a touchdown in this game, and they still couldn't figure out how to get DJ Moore going. It's so weird because DJ Moore is an extremely talented wide receiver, and it just didn't click for him. The Bears' opening drive, though, in this one, a little deceptive. They looked terrible. They looked a lot like the Chicago Bears that we saw on Monday Night Football versus the Minnesota Vikings, where they kind of struggled the first half of the game. They started off well, and then they kind of fizzled out towards the end. But they had a 3-and-out for the first drive, and I'm sure every Bears fan that had been drunk in the parking lot for the last 20 minutes or for the last 4 hours or whatever was pretty upset watching Caleb Williams. Anyway, that doesn't matter because that's literally the worst drive they had basically this entire game. The Cowboys' first play has a little bit of a redemption arc in it. So the first play of this game was a run by Javonte Williams, who used to play for the Denver Broncos, now he plays for the Cowboys, along with Miles Sanders, who used to play for the Panthers, now he plays for the Cowboys. Javonte Williams has been the best running back for the Cowboys this season so far. He's running down the left-hand sideline about 15 yards away from the line of scrimmage, and then a defensive back runs in and strips the ball away from him and then falls out of bounds. They call it a fumble, and they fumble recovered by the Bears. That defensive back was Tyreek Stevenson. Yeah, Tyreek Stevenson. If you don't know the name, some of you do, some of you don't. Tyreek Stevenson was the defensive back that was talking to the Commanders fans in the audience before that insane Hail Mary play last season while he was in the end zone. Love to see redemption. He strips Javonte Williams, gets that fumble recovery, and it triggers the offense for the Bears. Ronan Dunze gets his 4th touchdown in 2 games. He had 3 touchdowns last week. Don't forget that part. He had one in this. Well, he had multiples in this one. But he gets his 4th touchdown in 2 games. Amazing. The Bears' following drive is pretty quick. It's a 1-play flea flicker to Luther Burden. Shout out to the flea flicker. One of the most fun plays in all of football. Luther Burden the third, I believe it is, but I don't think he has the 3 on the back of his jersey, but he had it when he was at Mizzou. A guy that everybody's been excited for goes out there and makes a huge play, 65-yard catch for a touchdown. The Cowboys lose CeeDee Lamb at about the midway point of this game because of a high ankle sprain. They actually zoomed in and showed his ankle just completely swollen up. Almost as bad as that one time Saquon rolled his ankle and the blood started flowing to the point where there was literally a baseball attached to the side of his leg. Anyway, CeeDee Lamb's going to be out for a couple weeks, but it felt like the Cowboys started to act as if they don't have other wide receivers on their team when CeeDee went down, which is really weird. They were only down by 10, so they were still in this game. Caleb Williams, throughout the course of this game, looked the most decisive he has ever looked as a starting quarterback in the NFL. He was undeterred by the pressure. The few times that the Cowboys actually got pressure on him, he was still able to deal out there and get first downs. He had one where Ronald Dunze was running a comeback towards the first down marker, and it felt like when he snapped the ball, he knew that there was going to be an unblocked defender running towards him. He rolls out towards the defender to cut down the passing lane between him and Roan and throws the ball to him on a rope over the top of the defender. They hit the first down, and then he gets a couple yards after that. That's the Caleb Williams that people were hyping up being the first overall pick. The Cowboys were facing a quarterback that was in the zone, and then they did the worst possible thing you can do in that situation. They gave him the ball back. There were 2 interceptions in this game. One, Tremaine Edmonds had 2 interceptions, and then Kevin Byard got an interception. Proof of life interception from Kevin Byard. If you haven't heard that name in a while, he's been playing with the Bears. So 3 interceptions in total on this one. The third one, the Kevin Byard one, was when Joe Milton was in the game, so essentially the Cowboys had given up. But it's hard to win games when you turn the ball over 3 times in the course of it. I say twice effectively because the third one was like second-year quarterback that you traded for that's the backup that you took the starters out for. But 3 turnovers is not going to win you a game, especially when the other team's putting up 40 on you. That was probably look, man, we all saw what happened. Russ was able to go out there and deal against the New York Giants, and now he's sitting on the bench. Don't know what the future is going to hold for the Chicago Bears overall, but I do believe in building confidence. I do believe in building chemistry over the course of like easy games. The easy games make the hard games easier, right? Knowing that you have faith in certain plays, knowing that you have faith in certain players on your team, and building that connection is like really important. And I think that's what we saw a lot of in this game. And on that note, I'm out. I'm way over my 1 hour limit. I appreciate everybody who listened to every single part of this. I wrote too many notes, and I'm gonna tune it up a little bit and get it to under 1 hour. All right. Check y'all later. I think I only went 30 minutes over. Appreciate everybody for listening. Hit me up on Twitter at FB_playbook or my personal Twitter account if you want to watch me tweet about the challenge at the Ashton J. Hit me up on Instagram at the Ashton Forever if you want to watch my mid basketball highlights, also like my workouts and stuff like that, and my quad ball stuff, or you just care about my life. On Tuesdays, I usually am posting really cool sports photography photos from NFL photographers or just photographers in general all over the world. I have a burner account that professional NFL photographers are following for some reason, and I don't understand. It's like a real thing. Like, I got one as I was looking at photos the other day, and it was a guy who takes photos for the Browns. So weird. It's just a burner account. I don't post on it at all. That's all I got. That's all you got. And most importantly, stay hydrated and go home, Roger.